Welcome back, my sewing friends. Delightful to see you as always. Now, those of you that have been here for a little while will know that I've been sewing for a very long time. Since I was 14 is when I started. And I know that there are so many different sewing tools and equipment and supplies that you possibly could buy and want to buy, have to buy, but it's also hard to know what to spend your money on. We all have a set sewing budget, so I thought it would be really fun to talk about what you should save on, scrimp on in that budget so that you have the funds to spend on other things. Now, we're all different, of course, but this is at least my list of what I would save on, what I would spend on. Now, I have 10 items in total, 5 to save, 5 to spend on. And I will say the item first, and then if I spend or save, and then we'll talk about why that might be too. So here we go. So this is my list, and let's start with thread. Spend. Yes. So there is no substitute for good quality thread. I can't tell you the amount of times that poor quality thread has caused me thread jam, the machine, it just does not like sewing. Time and time, when you sew and it just keeps pulling apart, the thread just keeps vanishing. It's not breaking, but it just pulls apart. That is bad thread. So the quality of the materials that you use is important, and there's no substitute for good quality thread. So definitely buy a good quality brand, and every machine is a little different. So you might find what works on one machine is different for another, but stick with good quality brands and your sewing life will be a lot easier, far less thread jam, far neater stitches, and nicer end result. Fabric. Spend. Yes. Again, fabric is an item that I would always spend on. And I mean spend on quality. Again, the quality of the materials that you use is so important. When you buy good quality fabric, you're going to have a nicer sewing experience because it will be easier to work with. It will handle nicely. It will... you won't have to, when you can, like natural fibers as well, it'll iron better, it will handle better. It will just be such a nicer experience to work with. Your end garment will probably end up looking a lot nicer as well. You won't have things like static, you won't have pulls and tucks and accidentally melt things. And it will just probably, because you like it better because it's in a nicer fabric, it's going to last longer in your wardrobe because you like it better and you'll wear it more often. So good quality materials, you put all this time and effort into something, skimping out on cheap fabric that doesn't feel very nice, that you only got because it's cheap. In the long run, you won't end up liking it, and it will be usually, in my experience, really awful to have to work with as well, and it's not fun and not nice. Now, you can definitely save money on buying fabric, thrift stores, secondhand, on sale, but it is an item that I would allocate more of your budget to getting quality fabrics where you can, because it's definitely worth it in the end. Another way that you actually can spend more on fabric but save at the same time is my next one, and that is practice. And this is where you save money on. By practicing, and I say by practicing, go to the thrift store and get bed sheets for just a few dollars, literally $2 you can get bed sheets for, at least most places, I think. And you can do practice garments. So when you do a practice garment, you practice the fit, practice sewing it together, practice cutting it all out. You'll save money on your end fabric, which gives you more budget-wise to be able to spend on good quality fabric, because you know you're not risking it, right? You know your pattern, you know your size, you know you're cutting it out right, you know you're cutting the right size, you know you're going to sew it together nicely because you've already practiced, and then you can spend more money on that fabric because by practicing saves you money. And by practice, you use all of your scraps, the $2 bed sheets, maybe you've got some at home that are willing to rip up and practice with. So that's definitely one to save on, is in your practice ones, which ends up saving you money in the long run and allows you to spend money on other things. What about zips, buttons, snaps, hooks and eyes, all these types of fastenings? Save. Yes, definitely save money on these. Zips are zips. There are good quality and worse quality, but generally there's not much difference. And you can, like, snaps are snaps and hooks and eyes are kind of hooks and eyes. So get them really cheap when you find them. You can definitely save money on these. Buttons you can find really cheap as well. There's no need to buy really expensive things here for any reason. You're better off allocating that money to something else, at least in my opinion, that you'll get more bang for your buck, so to say. So definitely all the ones you can even scavenge for free, the ones you find in Grandma's sewing box, are probably fine to use. So use them. Save your money on all these types of fastenings. I recommend you save your money on patterns. Now, this is part and parcel with my next one after this, but let me explain patterns first. So you can go to the thrift store, you can go on eBay, Etsy, and get secondhand patterns for fairly well cheap. And you often, I know in the US, your big pattern companies have these sales and you get them for so cheap. That doesn't happen here in Australia, but I see that a lot. You can, it is not about scrimping so much, but be specific, and you don't have to buy so many patterns to try and, you know, get the right fit of a garment. That's where you just waste your money, in my opinion. So don't go out buying all of them. Just be really specific, save your money. You only need to buy a few really good ones in the style you like, which leads me to my next one, and that is learning or education. Spend. So by spending money on learning and education is how you can save money on patterns, for example. So you can learn how to fit and tweak patterns, learn, educate yourself, spend the money on books, on online courses and programs, on workshops, on in-person sewing classes, whatever you can get your hands on. Everything and anything. Spend money on your education, on learning more, and you'll be able to save money on things like patterns because you'll only need a few really nice ones that you like, because you'll know how to fit, how to tweak, how to change them, and you don't need to buy very many other things because you'll be so much more knowledgeable and you have that behind you. So there is absolutely no substitute for spending money on your sewing education. A lot you can get for free. Obviously, here we are on YouTube, but there is next level. The more you just try and grasp, it's definitely something worth spending your money on education because it will save you money everywhere else. I started vintage sewing school because of this reason. I did not have an access. These things didn't exist when I first started sewing. There were no online programs. There was no online learning anything at that point. And I didn't have access to sewing books or anything. I didn't know these things were there. So vintage sewing school is one reason why I started, so that we all can learn online at any time now. It's all accessible to us. What about the one and only item, the sewing machine? Save. Yes, save. Hear me out. So it's nice to have a nice fancy machine that does all the things with all the bells and whistles, and I have some. But really, when you first get started sewing, you don't need all those bells and whistles. Simple sewing machine is more than adequate to get you started, get you going. You don't need to spend a lot of money. Second-hand sewing machines are even more fantastic. I have videos on choosing a sewing machine to help you through that process if you're there, and that you only need a basic, good quality machine. Again, second-hand is really good. You can spend very little on a good sewing machine to get you started, and then it's something that you'll maybe spend on later down your sewing journey when you actually know what you want and you know you're into it, and it's then worth spending money on. But to begin with, definitely save on a machine. Spend your money on learning, on different fabric, on all those other things first, but save on your first sewing machine. Scissors and shears. Spend. Absolutely. There is no substitute for a good quality scissors and shears. You'll be using these all the time on every garment, and trust me, your kitchen scissors, while they might do the job, oh, they're horrible. You're going to get munched up fabric. They're going to be hard on your hand to work with, probably blunt. Definitely getting yourself a good pair of dressmaking shears, scissors is definitely something to spend your money on. You only have to buy a good pair once, and that's it, because you'll have these for the rest of your sewing life because you just get them sharpened. So just find something that is a good quality brand, but find one that just feels nice and comfortable in your hand and use it if you can. There's all different sizes and they'll all feel a little bit different. So that's my tip for you there, but definitely spend on a quality. I promise you, it's when I see students and they use, like mine, for example, for the first time, they instantly, their eyes pop open and they say, wow, that's actually very easy. It makes the job a lot easier. So spend on those shears and scissors. What about pins and marking devices, chalks, textures, things like that? I say save. So I don't think that there's any reason to buy anything really expensive. The pins that come with things will do the job. The markers and chalk you can get away with. Now, I'm going to say that there's different brands and different chalk, texture, etc. that you like or won't like. We're all different. I have videos here on different tools that I like and recommended. There's lots and lots of videos I've done on tools, but chalk and textures and pins, you can get away with. Save money on those. Use what you've got around home, what you can find for cheap to begin with. Spend your money on other things, at least to begin with. As you build your sewing box, equipment, supplies, then, upgrade to a few more things, but save money on those to begin with. What about interfacing, fusing? Spend. Oh yes, I have too often in my sewing journey, I know, bought poor quality interfacing, particularly the fused, fusible type, and it has been a disaster. I think you know what I'm talking about. So again, it's all about the quality materials makes your job so much nicer and easier, and you get a better result in the end. Buy good quality interfacings and fusings, because trying to scrimp and just buy cheap, poor quality only makes for a harder sewing experience, a not nice end product. It's just, that's why when you practice first, and you'll know exactly how much you need so you're not wasting it, so you can spend more on getting quality because you'll use less because you've already done the practice, etc. See how this all links together? But definitely buy good quality fusings and interfacings. It will make a difference, I promise. I think to sum this up, it's very clear, at least in my opinion, that it's all about spending money on quality materials. So the fabrics, the interfacings, the thread, the materials that really make up your garment is what I think that you get the most out of spending your sewing budget on. And saving things like threads and markers and pins and zips and all this sort of thing. Save your money there. You don't need to spend a fortune on those things. And things like learning how to use them and education and practice saves you money on all of those other things. So spend on your education and your practice, and I promise you it will save money because you'll have to buy less fabric, so it allows you to spend more on your budget. Save money on all those tools and equipments because it really depends on your individual workflow on what you like to use with those items. So save on those until you know what you want later on down the track, and then you can spend money on the things on the tools and equipment that really work for you. What do you think? Do you have a similar list to mine? What do you spend or save on? I would love to know below. Remember, do read all those comments because there's always so much great information down there from you all sharing. That is how we all get better at sewing, of course. So until next time, my friends, happy sewing. Bye.